All right, ladies and germs, let's go. Part 8. All right. So here we have a big situation. This is actually the last problem, but it's going to be a massive one because you notice how the test usually ends. So we have the situation you have to analyze. So Mike works as a qualified Algebra 1 tutor, which is ironic because both Mr. Bostic and I know have both tutored Algebra 1. And he charges an initial fee of 50 bucks and then $30 per hour of tutoring. And I'll be honest, guys, this is what an Algebra 1 tutor costs. I used to tutor Algebra 1, and I charged the people I tutored privately, like at their homes or like at a library or something. I used to charge them $35 an hour. And that is sometimes a cheap Algebra 1 tutor. We keep stressing to you guys how important math is, and I know some of you guys don't believe us, which is fine. However, I will tell you this, later in life, when people who didn't believe us realize they have to go back and relearn Algebra 1, it costs them so much money. Again, I have charged personally $35 per hour of Algebra 1 tutoring, and I'm doing no different what I'm doing in class necessarily. It's one-on-one, of course, but and I can be a little more attentive to the questions. But in the end, that's how much it costs to learn math if you didn't learn math in school. Like, go back and try to find tutoring rates. Like, go on the internet and type in Algebra 1 tutor. The cheapest tutor you will probably find is going to be 20 to 25 bucks per hour. So just think about how much that costs if you don't learn algebra uh, in high school when it's free. It'll cost you an arm and a leg, and that's just the truth of the matter. But anyway, let's define the variables for the situation. Well, let's see what kind of things we're comparing. Well, I see money here. That's definitely one thing we're comparing, and we're charging per the hour, which has to be the other thing. So, again, if you're thinking about independent, dependent, X and Y kind of variables, which is in control? Do I get paid more if I tutor more, or do I get to tutor more if I choose to put more time into it? Well, the second scenario doesn't make any sense. So X definitely has to be number of hours, and so the independent variable is hours, and then Y has to be money, so the dependent variable is money. So money depends on hours, not the other way around. We have some numbers here to pay attention to: $50 for a starting fee and $30 per hour tutoring, because it will help us calculate the number amount earned. So if you think about this calculation, if I have no tutoring hours, in this situation, it's still a $50 consult fee. Just to talk to a tutor is going to cost you some money. So the process here was going to be a plus 50, and I would argue it's going to be 0 times $30 an hour, which you never got charged, plus a 50 consult fee. So for 1 hour of tutoring, that's going to cost you an extra 30, which will pump you up to 80 bucks just for 1 hour of tutoring, which is not even a full class period. And again, that's going to be because you're charging 1 hour of tutoring, which is going to cost you 30, plus that initial $50 fee. 2 hours, that's another $30. So that's going to be 110 bucks for just 2 hours of tutoring, which is just like class period plus Spartan time. So 2 hours at $30 an hour plus 50 is going to be 110. Now notice here the graph jumps to 5, or the table jumps to 5, so we can't just necessarily be adding 30 each time, but we can use our process rule. If I'm tutoring for 5 hours and then charging $30 an hour, and then add 50 to that total, well, 30 times 5 is 150, plus 50 will give me 200. Here we have 10 hours of tutoring, that's going to be $30 an hour, plus 50. Well, 10 hours of tutoring at $30 an hour, 10 times 30 will be 300, plus the 50 will be a $350 bill. And finally, 40 hours of tutoring, which is like a full week of tutoring at $30 an hour, plus the 50 initial fee. Well, this part of it is going to be 1200, so this is going to be 1250. Okay? So when you talk about an algebraic rule, again, this hopefully is starting to become very repetitive. We're going to have to know that our rule is going to be y equals change times x plus the start value. Well, those two things are really prevalent both in the situation and also in the table. Here we have our start value. And then, of course, we're going to have our change is going to be plus 30. So that means our equation is going to be y equals 30x plus 50. Now, if we want to write this as a more correctly, we pay attention to the fact that our variables are n and m. So we can say that the money we earn is going to be $30 for every hour we tutor plus 50. Now, in fact, if we want to take it one step farther, we should probably write this in function notation. So the function of m, when I apply it to n, is to take 30 times the number of hours plus 50. So let's talk about whether or not 4.5 makes sense in the context of this problem if it was an input. Keep in mind input is number of hours, so the question you're asking yourself, can I record 4.5 as hours I'm actually tutoring? So I would argue the answer to this question is absolutely yes. If input is hours, 4.5 means I'm going to tutor for 4.5 hours and charge you for 4.5 hours. So since 4.5 hours exists, I would say that this is a valid input for this situation. Okay? So let's go ahead and graph this guy. We have to scale and label the axes. Well, I can start with the labels. This will be number of hours, and this right here is going to be money. So now it's a matter of re-referencing our table to see where we actually have to go. So if we look at my hours, the biggest number of hours I have to show is 40. So now I have to ask myself, well, if I have to go from 0 to 40, what do I want to count by? Let me darken my axes here. Okay. Well, I'm definitely not going to count by ones. It's not enough there. Can I get away with 2? Well, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 30, 32, 34, 36, 38, 40. So I could get away with 40, but even, guys, I'll be honest, that seems like way too much to count. I think what I'm going to do is just count by fives. So that's going to be 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. Which is going to cover the biggest number on that I have to actually graph. We see that's a 40 here. Now the biggest number I have to graph on my other axis, though, is 1250. Wow, that's going to be a tall order. Like, well, how in the world am I going to count to get to 1250? I could count by tens or hundreds, I think. That might do it. So like 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 600. So 1100, 1200, and then that would be 1250 at the very top. So I took out my whole graph. Fantastic. Now let's actually start plugging these in with actual values. Let's actually make that right there. Okay, so let's look at the table. So 0 and 50. So at 0, boom, there it is, 50. Let's see. 1 hour is going to be 80. So here's where I have to guess. So in the middle is 250, so 80 should be about right there. Let's see what we got. 2 is 110. So just above the 100 mark. 5 will get me 200. So 5 will get me 200. Excuse me. 10 will get me 350. I'm just looking off my table. So 10 will get me 350. So it should be right there in the middle. And then finally 40 gets me 1250. So 40 at the very end of my graph will get me 1250. Okay. So you can kind of see how this would form a straight line. You did a bunch of skipping in the middle, but it does form a straight line. It is linear. So let's get answering to these questions. Okay. How much would it cost to hire Mike for 200 hours? Well, again, I'm going to point out I have my rule right here. So if I know the rule, m of n is going to take the input times 30 and then add 50 to it. 200 hours, well, we identified that as an input. It's number of hours tutoring, independent value variable is going to be hours. So what we're actually told is that that's an n value. So if I'm looking at the function, we're looking at the function m of 200, which says I'll take the input, multiply it by 30, and then add 50 to it. Well, 30 times 200, well, let's see, 3 times 2 is 6, so there's 1, 2, 3 zeros. So to hire a mic for 200 hours is going to cost you $6,000 plus a $50 fee, so that'll be $6,500 for 200 hours of tutoring. And you want you guys to know the scary part is that is literally how much it would cost. Like that's a legitimate amount of money to hire a tutor for 200 hours. For how many hours of did you hire Mike if your bill is 650? Well, we have to make a realization here that that is actually the output. So we're actually being told this part of the equation right here. Right? So if I have 650 to be the same as 30n plus 50, we have to realize the function said, well, I'm going to take the n times 30, then add 50. In fact, I'm going to write this the other way because I think it's more intuitive. So if I take the function n and multiply it by 30, then add 50, I'll end up with $650. So if I'm working backwards, I'm first going to subtract 50, and I'm going to end up at 600. Then I'm going to divide by 30, which is the opposite multiply of 30, of course. And I'm going to end up at 50. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, end up at 5. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I messed that up, guys. I'm sorry, I was looking at the wrong number. So if I take 600 and divide by 30, I'll end up at 20 hours of tutoring. Okay, so I apologize that I was looking at the wrong number. So if I take 650, subtract 50, I'll end up at 600. So I'm just working backwards here. That's messy. I'll end up at 600. And then instead of multiplying by 30, if I divide by 30, I'll end up at 20. Okay, so the answer is going to be 20 hours of tutoring. So 20 hours of tutoring is like a week, and that's really how much you can earn as a math tutor if you know Algebra 1 really well. There's lots of people who make a full-on living just tutoring kids in Algebra 1 who didn't pass. So guys, that's it. That's all I can do to prepare you for this test. Hope you guys are watching this. If not, unfortunately, guys, that's on you. So hope best of luck. I hope sincerely you guys all scored an 89 because I need a haircut anyway.